Hey, good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of the Ride Along Radio Show, the radio show where we try to give you the perspective of two police veterans as we tour Los Angeles in a virtual police car. And we talk about the events of the day, events of the week, current events, and events that have an effect or an impact on law enforcement and the community, usually both. We try to keep it current, and we do keep it real. I'm George Holt. I had a 25-year career in law enforcement in this fine city and worked a bunch of different assignments and grew up in L.A. also. So I was in L.A. for like 23 years before I became a cop, and then I was a cop here for another 25. So you do the math. Been around for a long time. To my right is Gil Contreras, and I'll let Gil tell you about himself.
Well, by now everybody knows me. They know me so well I have to now wear my vest when I do the show. So, yeah.
You got your side panels in?
No. But I've been taking a lot of heat lately, and what's funny is I'm actually doing this online thing for my to renew my first aid CPR stuff because I'm going to be certified as an EMT. I'm going to do that in August.
Right.
For some business stuff and things. And so I'm trying to do my dang online class.
Right.
And just my Facebook page is just blowing up today.
Yes.
And, with all that's happening at the DNC over there and then just this, whole Black Lives Matter, cops are bad narrative that's out there. Yeah, I found myself in between, trying to watch the videos and answer the questions and then going back to Facebook. So I just figured just to be safe.
Just to be safe, be on the safe side.
Yeah, because they're coming from all angles.
What do we call that? An ounce of prevention.
Yeah.
Right? It's worth a pound of cure.
Sure.
It's worth 147 grains of cure. So, all right. So you may notice that we have a ride-along with us today, actually. And he's no ride-along. He's actually a guy I've known for a while. When I first met him, he was a fresh-faced young SWAT officer working in the city. And now he's all grown up, and he's a police lieutenant. And a damn good one, by all accounts. So
thank you.
I'm going to introduce you to Tony Boisselle, who is not only a police lieutenant, because that's only part of the reason he's here. He's here because he is also the founder of an organization called SoBear. And you formed that in 2012, right?
I did.
To support those who are in alcohol and drug recovery. And that's not usually something that you hear about police officers doing. And so I thought that was unusual, and I thought that was something that warranted and merited attention, positive attention. So SoBear's mission is to raise awareness about the value of supporting those who are on alcohol and drug recovery programs. And a portion of SoBear LLC's net proceeds are donated to various alcohol and drug recovery programs, as well as supporting the advancement of substance abuse research. So, hey, Tony, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Good to see you.
So, hey, man, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, man.
No.
Yeah. I see you on Facebook, but not in real life, So that's cool. And Facebook, believe it or not, folks, Facebook is not real life. So don't get too twisted. So it's good to see my guy here in real life. Hey, so hey, man, what was the motivation behind you starting? We're going to get into this more later. I just want to get a little background for the people.
It's got a lot of friends and family members, even on and off the job, that are substance abuse.
Yeah.
And I wanted to help them. I mean, to see people's lives just spiraling down, good people.
Right.
Their lives are just spiraling down, and they're having problems. Kicking the disease. A lot of people think that alcoholism or addiction is a character flaw, but it's actually a disease, just like anything else. And we're really not educated into it.
Right. That's true. That's definitely true.
So,
and I think it's only been in the last, I don't know, you could speak to this better than I could, Gil, in terms of your background with this kind of thing and your education and everything. But I mean, we haven't been treating alcohol like a disease, or especially substance abuse or substance addiction as a disease, probably not until I was an adult. I think they started talking about that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was probably mid-'90s, and when I had a clinic down there, and I did domestic violence and wrote some grants, and we actually had our own organization down there for a while, working directly with the courts.
Right.
And that was the first time I'd ever heard it, presented as a disease.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time after law enforcement. I spent a lot of time in that kind of field, the social service field, And so I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings about, it may be a disease, but there's a whole lot of personal choice and other decisions. That
Well,
people
certainly,
are
but
making.
some people make that choice and they don't suffer from it as much because they sometimes don't have the genetic disposition for it to be such an issue, is my understanding. But we'll get into that later. But I really wanted to touch on that about you because I don't think that most people know that. And people look at police officers and they think that that is what that person is what that person, that's all they are, right? Is that uniform and what goes on inside that uniform. And people don't realize that, that cops are people because everybody knows cops.
Well,
you probably got cops in your family, et cetera. But
I don't think people do know that. People don't think they don't think that anymore anyway.
they don't fully appreciate it. But it's a difference between knowing something and realizing it. Right. So you know it, so now realize it. And what we have is two people here with me today who not only have had law enforcement careers, but who have also stepped off into other arenas and other avenues to help people that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they wore a badge. It's just the kind of people that are drawn to this job. So, I didn't know that you had a clinic. I remember when you left the department to go do the grant writing thing.
Right.
And I remember it was about substance abuse and recovery and all that.
I work with a bunch of nonprofits, especially in the Valley and in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And,
now, I do remember some of that, but I didn't know that you had gone into actually so far as having a clinic. That's
we
pretty cool.
were approved by the probation department. We worked directly with the courts. People came to us, for domestic violence especially.
Sure.
And in addition to that, I'm an award-winning journalist, so
Right.
I'm not sitting here making stuff up.
Right.
And I've not only been a police officer, I've also worked, as a criminal defense investigator. So I've seen both sides of most of the issues, and that's why I have the perspective that I do.
And it's interesting you say that because I was in a discussion in a chat room, and someone said that about you was that, now keep in mind that Gil has mentioned on the show before that he has worked for the other side in terms of criminal defense.
We call it going to the dark side, by the way.
Going to the dark side,
But I've been on the dark side.
No, going to the dark side, exactly. And so people should appreciate that about you, is that you have also made sure that people got a fair shake when they went to trial.
Right.
And made sure that, and as a result, you've been able to see where police officers have made mistakes in arrest and presenting reports, et cetera, et cetera.
And the thing I keep saying, and people just don't believe it, but having worked on the criminal defense side, working on the dark side really opens your eyes. And, because what I found is that probably 97% or maybe higher of cops are arresting the right people in the right way for the right crimes. And the times when I was able to undo a case, it was either because the officer was lazy or poorly trained, and it's all about discoverable stuff. And, I couldn't get the video out of the machine, so I'm just going to put it in my report, or I'm just going to forget it. Hopefully nobody finds it.
We know some guys who used to cut and paste arrest reports, and I think I mentioned this on the show before, that it got to the point where they were making so many arrests that they all had the same exact source of activity. They made the same observation. Suspects said the same thing. And eventually, the prosecutors start seeing this cookie-cutter report coming across their desk from these two officers who had gotten a lot of accolades for their productivity, by the way, enforcing this particular this particular section. And somebody said, wait a minute, there's no way that this all happened, da-da-da-da-da, right? And so those guys end up getting rolled up. They got rolled up, right? I mean, I haven't seen hide nor hair of them, so I assume they did because I haven't seen them in a long time.
Right, but I will say,
so it happens.
But if you work the same area, doing the same, most of my work was gangs and narcotics.
Right.
So both, as enforcement, uniform enforcement, and undercover, buying PCP, rock cocaine, marijuana around the city. But, when you're working uniform patrol or you're working in enforcement detail in a specific crime impact team, in a specific location addressing street sales of narcotics, your suspects and your times and your locations all begin to sound the same because they are the same.
Yeah, but you can't cut and paste. Now, see, that's the other thing. When we came on the job, there was none of this cut and paste.
Well, no, you had to write.
You had to write, okay?
You had to write.
You had a pen in some cases, not even a pencil with an eraser. You had a pen, and you had to write your report out by hand. And so that's avoided any of this cut and paste nonsense.
And I'll tell you this.
You had to write it fresh every time.
When I was on probation, when I wrote my report, before they even read it, the sergeant would do this. and they would look to see if there was any whiteout. I mean, you remember whiteout,
Oh, yeah,
right?
sure. Nobody even talks about whiteout anymore, but yeah.
So, oh yeah, did you put white? You whited something out here? Oh,
Right.
Yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah,
Right.
rewrite it.
Exactly.
That's how I learned.
And that's what I'm saying.
That's how I
And
learned how to become a writer.
And
by the way.
that's the pin. And one of the last arrests I made was a kid coming through the checkpoint. He had psilocybin, which for
Wow,
those
that's
of you who ain't
very
into that,
70s.
He had shrooms. No, and this was 2011 is the last.
No,
one.
I know, but
Right,
I've
but
heard
yeah,
that
from
since.
back from that day, right? Yeah, psilocybin, magic mushrooms or shrooms, and pull them out of the car. Just the way they act. Anyway, get them out of the car. Find this, and I call for a unit. Now, even though I was a supervisor at the time, I'm still not going to make officers write that paper and all that. I can write down what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So the officer's showing up. They're searching, got their handcuffing him. I walk over to the probationary officer and I hand him the arrest report that I've just written out in pen and my posse box on the hood of my car. And he goes, "What's this, Sarge?" I go, "This is the report. This is the officer's observations, source of activity, et cetera, et cetera." And he's looking at it. He goes, "You just wrote this right now?" Yeah, man. Because when I came on, there was none of this going back to the desk and doing all this nonsense. Oh man, you scratched it out. And we work with a guy who was a guest on our show, a call-in guest. If you made an arrest with that guy, by the time you got back to the station, he was writing the report on his lap, on his posse box, and it made things go a lot quicker. But that means what's coming out of your mouth is what you just saw. What's coming out of what you're writing and putting on a paper is something that just happened. It's not a cookie cutter kind of a deal because the technology wasn't around.
Right.
But also, like you said, it forced you to be a better writer.
Right.
It used to be that if your paper wasn't right as a police officer, you weren't going to make it as a cop because there was no spell check. A spell check, you know what a spell check was? That sergeant holding up that paper. Like Gil just talked about, that was your spell check. Your spell check had 3 stripes and a mustache.
And I'll tell you this. You know, I had an FTO that in probably my second phase of probation, who when we was code 7 time, it was like, okay,
that's lunchtime.
Hey, we're going code 7. Oh, okay, back to unit into the dark corner.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to go eat. You finish the report.
Right, exactly.
When you're done, you come get something right quick.
Right, so you better hurry up.
So my partner, the 2 senior officers are inside eating, and here we are in the car.
Yep.
Writing.
Yep.
Trying to get that out of the way so we could get. I mean, there's a little, it kind of verged on hazing, kind of, but that was the way that's how I came up, and
it made you proud. It made you proud to get through that though.
And there's
one past it, right?
One other FTO that I had, and really I attribute all of my technical expertise to him, and he's a guy who was a chief all over the place, who we know well.
Yes.
But that guy, what he would do when I was his boot. He would just take everything.
Wait, now there's 2 guys like that. We know there's been a chief all over the place. Actually, there's a couple of guys. Are we talking about the black guy or the white guy with the Mexican name? Or the Mexican guy with the white name?
The Mexican guy with the white name.
Okay, right. All right. Got you. Mexican guy with the white name.
I don't want to mention his name because
we shall not mention his name. But we know what we're talking about.
I made the mistake of talking about him by name when I was at KPFK, and he ended up pulling the transcripts. And years later, probably 10 years later, he ends up chief somewhere, and my partner ends up going back. And
right.
He goes, "Hey man, you want to come back? Be you and me just like the old days." And he approaches the chief and he goes, "No, not Contreras. No, fuck that guy. I remember what he said he said, Chief, that was 10 years ago.
It was 10 years ago. But that shows you who that guy is.
And he said, "I don't remember what he said, Chief." He goes, "I do." He pulled it. He pulled it out. He said, "I got the transcripts right here. Here's what." And this, okay.
That's some little girl shit. Sorry.
But I'll just tell you this:
Whatever.
that guy, as anal as he was,
right.
He forced me to be a good rider. I became a narcotics expert. I became an expert in DUI drivers.
Yes.
In 11.550s. All because of him, and that attention to detail has served me well the rest of my life.
Definitely,
everything that I've done.
And that is proof positive. You can learn something from everybody. Something. So, and from him, you got that. I learned some other shit from him, but we won't talk about that.
Well,
anyway. So, look, we weren't here last week. We were dark. I was down in Alligator Alley in Florida in the Everglades. Literally alligators. I mean, they don't call. I thought it was like a joke. Literally alligators, man. Alligators grunt. Did you know that? I thought that.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that they grunted. So
you got that close.
Oh yeah. So because there's bodies of water all over the place where we were staying. So I'm going back to my hooch one night, and I hear this hooch being a place I was sleeping, not like, okay, all right. I thought I should clear that up.
Well, you didn't say cooch if you had said cooch.
Well, it was, or hooch for short for hoochie mom. I don't mean that. I was going back to my hooch. I was going back to where I was being billeted at this place. And I hear this grunting noise. I'm thinking it's a big old bullfrog, like them Budweiser frogs or something, right? That deep. And the next day I go, you guys hear those frogs? They go, those weren't frogs. Those are alligators. It's mating season. And we ended up seeing several alligators. I mean, some of which couldn't fit on this table. I mean, serious like gators for real, man. That's what I was doing last week. That's where I was for the whole week, and it was crazy. The best part of it, though, was the last day we got to hang out in South Beach. So that was cool. I'd never been to Miami before, so that was cool. So anyway, we were dark last week, and the show before that, we talked about the Dallas PD attack, and the whole thing with the robot.
Right.
The ethical, and I haven't heard any more about that. It seems like it's kind of died down, and maybe it's just a news cycle is old now. But you would think that someone would still be discussing that tactic, although I don't think it's something that we're likely to see. I mean, your background, SWAT, et cetera, we had a lot of cool technology on our team, but we didn't have anything like that. But what did you think about that tactic?
It was a good tactic. It worked,
Yeah, and those guys, we were saying, kudos to those dudes for thinking outside the box, right?
To the chief for giving them the green light.
Right.
The chief had to say, hey, what are we going to do here?
Right.
What's the plan, guys? Somebody come up with something.
Because as a police officer, you are authorized, you are empowered, you are entrusted with making a lot of life and death decisions. But blowing up the department robot is not one of them. So that clearly got cleared all the way up to the highest level. And the chief told him to go ahead. And you know what? Again, kudos to that guy.
Yeah, it's definitely a risky move, not only department-wise, but politically. It was a political risky move.
Oh yeah, sure.
But
you know what? That shows his priorities are where they're supposed to be.
And the suspect was just there was no way they could let him get out of there, and there was no way they could let him shoot any more cops.
No,
there was just no way.
Well, he wasn't. Yeah, because if he got loose, then what was going to happen? He already showed he wasn't going to surrender.
Yeah, and you can't shut down the whole city and then wait him out for 48 to 72 hours until he decides he's going to either eat his own gun or make somebody go in there and do it for him.
Right. And so the other thing is, during that period of time, who else is he going to injure while he's doing that? You know what I mean? We don't know. So you're leaving him alive and trying to wait this dude out.
Right.
And you don't know what, if he came to fight, he can hold up in there. He had a bunch of ammo. He can make it real nasty.
He came to play.
He did.
He brought all the toys and he was serious. He told negotiators what he was doing, why he was doing it.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do more.
Well, and he had tactics and he had firepower.
Yeah.
But he didn't have no robot. So that's
he had no robot, and he was wounded. I think he was wounded also because there was some blood.
Yeah, it was some blood. He's probably going to end up bleeding out anyway if he didn't. Maybe he had a blowout kit though.
Yeah, I got mine.
So, so you might have it. So you're ready. So he can send a robot in if they want. So that was there, and then social media feedback. We always do that, and wow, there was a lot of feedback, a lot of social media. Not on that show, but on this show, period. If you look on a Ride Along Radio Facebook page, there's a whole lot of commentary right now about this topic we're going to talk about tonight, which is the acquittal of the Baltimore officers, which we predicted, right? And not just the acquittal, but dropping the charges. So there's a whole lot of chatter on that page right now. If you guys want to pull that up, if you're watching it live or you watching this later, you can pull that up. A lot of people who are new, so we're getting a lot of newer viewers, a lot of names I don't recognize are popping up, which is good, right? One lady in particular, though, and shout out to Teresa Dash, because Teresa took the time. She contacted me on Facebook, and she also went back. She watched our last episode, and she took the time to write a letter. I mean, let me back up. She took the time to write a nice, lengthy email, and to which she attached a nice, lengthy letter. So shout out to her. That's really cool that you are expressing yourself in such a heartfelt manner. And she said that she was considering calling in, but she may not be able to call in during the time that we're here. So, if you watch later and send us an email, that's cool. And that's at ridealongradioshow@gmail.com. One of the things that she talked about was when we covered Officer Tommy Norman last week. And the work he's doing, the North Little Rock officer that's made a lot of strides, a lot of gains with the community. He's been around for 19 plus years, et cetera. I have been aware of the dude for a good year and a half, but recently he came to more fame or more renown because the rapper The Game actually wanted to help this officer doing what he's doing. Game caught wind of him and started a GoFundMe for that officer to toys and chips and all the stuff he's been buying out of his own pocket for the kids in the community. He does a lot of good in the community. He's a beloved figure. So if you follow him on Instagram, he's a very prolific Instagram poster. I think he's on a cruise right now. He's on a cruise right now. So he started off in New Orleans, and I think he's in Jamaica today. So he's like posting stuff. But all the people who come up to him and just all the positivity and all the stuff on his page is really great. So anyway, we showed a video, and at the beginning of the video, he was dancing with some neighborhood kids. And you made a comment about it looked like he was dirty dancing, right? And at the time, I was like, I didn't catch that, but I don't know for sure, so I'm not going to just refute that because shit, we play it back, he could be, and then I look stupid, right? So
I all I said was it looked.
You said it looked like he was dirty dancing.
But it wasn't. It wasn't just he was.
You
dirty.
said smacking the booty. I think is what you said.
Right? Well, that's what he was doing. That's not my fault.
Okay.
But what brought the comment was I was making a point that in this new America, in this new Obama America, this is what.
Hold on. How did Barack Obama get to this? How did Barack Obama get
because in the last 8 years has brought us to this, and this is
so that police officer said,
"This is
I'm gonna smack this booty because Obama's
this
involved."
This is the kind of police department we want now. We don't want the enforcement guys. In fact, we don't even want them enforcing laws anymore. There's pushing to remove doing traffic stops. We just mail it. Just mail it to them.
Okay, well, you know what? And I'm glad you said that because I have seen people say that.
It's all of that nonsense. Let's disarm the cops. But they don't want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It speaks to their mindset, and that's the point I was trying to make. Is this new mindset of we don't want them out there using force. Criminal can do whatever they want. They can use any kind of weapon they want. But if you go to arrest, wait a second, let me just finish.
Nobody said that.
Let me just finish.
But you're making stuff up. Nobody said that. Nobody said that the dude couldn't. All they're saying is it's good to see somebody doing that part of the job because that part of the job needs to be done too. That's all. Nobody said get rid of the goon squad. And we all know
that's exactly
the goon squad.
You better do some research.
The goon squad has to be nobody on our social media said get rid of the goon squad. Everybody knows that the goon squad. Everybody knows that officer's not the one driving the robot into this parking structure. Okay, everybody knows that dude is not the one that's taking a 100-yard shot. But there's nothing wrong with having that dude there too. He's the guy that's going to be able to talk to these children and get them to see and have a very positive image of a police officer. The kind of image I had growing up as a police officer. My first memory of a police officer was my grandparents used to host a neighborhood watch meeting in their home, early 70s. Okay, lived in Wilshire Division, LAPD, and I remember 2 officers came, and I was sitting there with all the other people in the neighborhood who come to my grandmother's house or my grandparents' house for the neighborhood watch meeting, and I watched the way those guys walked in and the way they kind of just their command presence kind of filled the room, and the way those guys were assured of themselves, they knew what they were talking about. They were figures to be respected and admired, right? That was my first time ever having any contact with a uniformed police officer. The second time was at a place that's now Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles on Pico, but it used to be a diner called Egbert's, and a drunk man came in there acting crazy. They called the police, and 2 more LAPD guys, just like those first 2, showed up. And, man, as soon as they showed up, the whole vibe changed. The whole vibe of the whole city, because it was real tense, right? Till the police showed up. And when they showed up, I understood why they were called peace officers, because once they showed up, homeboy shut his ass up. They took command of the situation, and now everybody felt it was going to be okay.
Yeah, those days are gone.
Well, no, they're not. They're not. And I'm saying I saw that, and that was one of the earliest impressions I had that made me want to be a police officer. Now, that day is not that day is not replicated exactly today, and there's not as many instances of that. Which is why it's cool to see this officer who's impacting these children in a way that's positive. They look at him, they look up to him. This is a guy who's truly seen as a community resource officer, a true resource. Now, you and I know that sometimes that resource involves those handcuffs, right? And there's a bunch of tools on your belt. And you're not always going to use your gun. You're not always going to use your handcuffs. You're going to use sometimes you're going to use that pin in your pocket. That's the tool you're going to use the most, right? That pin in your shirt pocket. Officer's got a lot of tools at his disposal. Also, you got your brain and your sense of positive human nature, which is what he's using. And by all accounts, it's very heartfelt, and the dude is doing something positive. So there were a lot of people who took great umbrage when you said that he was smacking the booty, especially because it seemed that you were dismissing his whole approach to police work. Now, we knew guys and girls who were community resource officers, and they were people, some of whom had come from the very housing projects that they later went back to police.
Right.
And they had a lot of positive influence. Those guys and girls knew, though, that if something had to happen, they would let us come handle that. When I say us, we were on the crime impact team together. And the crime impact team was the guys that came with the windbreakers and the jeans. And we were the ones chasing people through the projects at night and you know, really putting the hammer down. But you got to have both. I spoke earlier, or a couple of shows ago, about that olive branch of peace and the arrows of war, like the eagle on the back of the dollar bill, right? He's got the olive branch of peace in one claw and the arrows of war with the other. So you got to reach with that olive branch of peace first while you keep ready the arrows of war. And that officer's the olive branch of peace to the community. You got to have a guy like that.
Yeah. I never said you didn't.
But you seem to be poo-pooing his approach to it.
The
like,
point
that's a bad
I was
thing.
trying to make, if I can just make my point, the point I was trying to make is that in the new America, this is what we want now from law enforcement.
You think people want that from all of law enforcement?
Absolutely. This is what we want. We want officer-friendly out there. We don't want officers using force. And if they do use force, we want them to be nice about it. And they shouldn't be excessive. And they shouldn't hurt Miho, who's a career criminal or a parolee, involved in criminal activity for life. But don't hurt him, for God's sakes.
Okay.
And, you know, if it's narcotics related or under $950 value, let's just write him a citation and send him on his way, shall we? That's the new America.
So,
and if you don't believe me, you know, you can show the video that I posted on my Facebook page out of Hemet, freaking Hemet PD. Hemet used to be a know-nothing city
retirement
way
city.
out there
Retirement city.
that was far removed from any Los Angeles County
that's a meth
nonsense.
city.
Now it looks like South Central.
It's a meth
looks like
city.
Chicago. It's ridiculous. And the chief, it's gotten so bad out there. The chief was on. He did a press conference today, or yesterday, and he's and he showed this raw video of these guys responding to a man with a gun call. And when you see the reaction of the community, all of the dancing and chips is not going to change that. It's a different day for law enforcement. I feel sorry for these guys.
I don't think it's an impact. I don't think it's an attempt to change that. I think that officer,
I feel bad for those guys who are still out there today trying to do police work.
But I think that what that officer is doing, because what you see is him, he deals with other people besides children in the community, but I think he's laying a foundation that people will go, that's going to be in them very early, and that they will use that as they go forward and interact with police officers. Apparently we have a call. I didn't even give out the phone number yet, so somebody had us on speed dial. It is 323-293-3375, but caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yo, what's up, y'all? It's Dwight Kirkpatrick in Cali.
DK, what's going on, man?
Yeah, man, I do got the number on speed dial, but, you know, that's not why I call, man. You know what? Just to stay on topic, I had a question, and I always wondered this. Normally, when there's time the police departments have to address the public or whatever, they'll probably have, I'm assuming they have someone specifically for media relations, correct?
Right, a PIO, Public Information Officer.
Okay, well, how come they how come they don't take a page out of the Officer Tommy, whatever, I don't remember.
Tommy
his name.
Norman.
Why don't they take a page? Yeah, Tommy Norman. Why don't they take a page out of their book and have like a specific, partner duo or even a unit itself that's meant just to be the face of a precinct or a face of of the law enforcement in a certain city. So, like, they can see these guys do the whole photo shoots or do something.
Right. Okay. Now,
tell the truth. Tell the truth, George.
I think
tell the truth.
I think that I always tell the truth. People may not like it, but I always tell the truth. I think, Dwight, that you can't assign something like that and expect to get the same results he's getting. And I say that because that's coming from his heart, right? And so it's a very organic thing for that dude, and he means that shit. So you can't really recruit. You can't put out a department flyer to say, hey, who wants to come do this? Because you're going to get people doing it because he's got good days off, right? Because you're off at nights and weekends. You got people doing it because they don't want to do the other side of police work, and not because they want to help the community. So that's difficult. A guy like that isn't everywhere. You know what I mean? So he truly is few and far between. He's a special human being. So you're not going to be able to replicate that by assigning a unit to do that. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. See, I was just thinking in terms of, like, positive publicity. you have like your so-called A team for the camera. Wherever people.
Oh no, they do
like
have that now. They do have that because when we'd have media come on ride-alongs with us, we would have. They ain't gonna put them with everybody. Okay, right. They're gonna put them, and the lieutenant can speak on that better than I can. But when you have somebody going a ride-along, if you're from the press, man, you were riding with a hand-picked officer.
That's right.
Who looks a certain way, is going to say certain things, not going to say certain things, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't get very many media ride-alongs riding in my car for that reason.
But they wouldn't do anything on a grander scale as far as public relations. So they, it would seem more, I don't like say, it wouldn't seem as sincere.
That's exactly the point.
But they do. I mean, you have you have PALs, you have Police Explorers, LAPD Explorer program. The age ranges from 14 or something to like 21. And hey DK, thanks for the call, man. And they're trying, to outreach as much as they can. They were trying to bring as many, minority kids into the for specifically this person or this purpose.
Well, I think a lot of that. Okay, yes. So Explorers is one thing,
which is very different from when I was a police explorer because we were being groomed for police work.
Right. Me too. I was an explorer in the '80s. Okay, and so it was a little different. But a police athletic league is not necessarily grooming those kids for a career in law enforcement.
But it's the little kids. It's the chips and dancing thing.
Right. But that does have a positive impact, if only because it shows it. First of all, people are going to come up and talk to that guy. We know that. People are going to come talk to that guy. They're going to tell him things that they are not going to tell Officer Hardass. Okay? He's going to have communication with the community. He's going to have fostered relationships. He's going to have built rapport. So a guy like that, he's still a police officer, but he's also seen as part of the community, and there's nothing wrong with that. As we like to say, even the gargoyles are part of the church, right? So it doesn't mean just because he doesn't look like everybody else, that and just because he may have a different function in the community doesn't mean he's not part of the community. Okay, so that guy is still.
Let me just interject here for us.
We're gonna play that video in a second too, and then we're gonna go to a break because I want everybody to see that the man wasn't smacking no booty. Go ahead.
Just a quick second. I remember when I was the chief's adjutant and I wrote this gang for our department. Wrote this gang thing, and because we didn't have a gang unit at that time, so he read my thing. I was a senior training officer. He read my thing. He goes, "Oh, hey, Gilly, I read your thing's good. We can't do it right now. We don't have the money. Whatever." Boom, puts it away. Year later, he calls me back. He calls me into the line. And I go, "Hey, Chief, you want to see?" He goes, "Yeah, hey, And he's flipping around. He goes, "Remember you wrote this about a year ago?" And
he still had it.
I said, "Yeah." He goes,
the transcript from the radio show.
Yeah, no, it was a different chief. Thank God.
Thank God.
He said, he said, "Hey, we got this grant money, and we have this position called the Gang Intervention Coordinator." And it's going to be working throughout the city, and we don't know what it is. It has nothing. We just has a title name.
Right.
Can you turn this into something? Or are you interested?
So you write the job description?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So I get promoted. I go to plainclothes, city car, office across the street.
A lot of hatred by that, by the way.
That's exactly what I was just going to talk about.
Yeah.
So one day I'm in the parking lot, and here I see these guys I used to serve search warrants with.
Yeah.
My guy who was my point guy, the guy who took the damn door down, right?
Yeah.
You know what he says to me? He goes, "Hey, man, how do you like your new position?" Yeah, I'm in the suit and, got the 9mm and the shoulder rig, fucking suspenders. I was doing it. You see what I'm saying? You don't hear me, though. You don't hear me, though. Just hang on. Hello, test. Anyway, so I'm doing I'm making it do what it do. You see what I'm saying? And here comes this officer, and he goes, "Hey, man, you like what you're doing?"
Hey, hold on a second. 323-293-3375. Okay, go ahead.
And I say, "Yeah, you know what? I do like it because, I was Officer Hardass out there doing gang enforcement, and now I'm, looking at prevention, intervention strategies and stuff like that."
Sure.
And so it's interesting to me. I like to learn, right? I'm just
right.
That's what drove me to news and radio, right? I'm like an information junkie. So I tell the officer, "Yeah, man, I kind of dig it," and I tell him why. And he just looked at me, and he was a smoker, right? And he had his sunglasses on, and he's smoking.
Did he say this with a New York accent?
He did.
I know exactly the guy.
And I knew it. You know what he said to me? He said, "You know what? That's fucked up. You're fucked up." I said, "What are you talking about? You just asked me if I like what I'm doing." "You're not a cop no more." And he turned and walked away. That's what I learned from that experience.
Let me tell you something, Gil. Here's the other side of that experience, okay? And it's so funny. We're talking about some shit that happened 25, 27 years ago probably now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That guy he's talking about was my training officer at the time, okay? and I saw you guys having that conversation. I can tell you where you had the conversation. I was sitting in the fucking car while he was having that conversation with you. Okay? And he turned around and he got in the car with me. Now, I barely knew you at that time,
right?
Because you were a senior training. I was brand new, so we didn't really kick it like that.
I remember when you was a new booty.
Yeah,
I remember that.
We didn't kick it like that yet. But I was aware who you were. And he got back in the car and he proceeded to say the same shit. Okay, and I thought, well, damn, man, this dude is, what I didn't see what the problem was. Mm-hmm. And then later, I just found out that was the culture of many police departments. The crabs in a barrel, Lieutenant. I know that you have to be careful, and you're not appearing in your capacity as a police lieutenant today, and you're here to talk about your organization, okay? But if you hear me, maybe knock on the wood or something a couple of times. Have you experienced haterism, or have you seen people hating on people in police departments?
It happens all the time, and it's not just in any department, it's in all departments. And the crazy thing about
both the ones I've worked in.
Well, the crazy thing about it is that if these officers are treating each other like that, how do they treat the public?
God,
and these are the things that people are
been
thinking about.
that.
And this is the stuff that the media has.
Yes.
And it's these guys, some of these individuals that are the negatives, make us, the rest of us, look really bad.
Mm-hmm. Man, I've been saying that for years.
And what we have to do is within the organization, with any police department, from the bottom officer all the way to the chief, is stop protecting these guys. They're not your friends. They're not your brothers. They're the ones that are out there
doing bad shit.
Doing bad stuff.
But they're union protected, and
Well, but you know what? Sometimes a union can't help you.
It has to. It has to be
when you're just doing raggedy shit. You out of pocket.
A blatant violation of law or department policy that is so blatant you can't overlook it, because if it gets out that you knew, you're going to go down.
You're
too.
going to. Exactly.
And I don't know an officer who's going to do that. But if it's not that,
a lot
blatant,
of them say they will, but they really won't.
Yeah, if it's that, unless it's that blatant, we're going. When I used to get rookies, because I was an FTO, and I'd get boots in my car. They go, hey, we'd be out in the field and people be doing stuff. And I say, see the way that guy did that? See the way he talked to that person? See how he treated them? We don't do that.
Right.
That's how not to do it.
Don't be an asshole.
I'm going to show you the way to do it, and that's not it.
And some of these bad officers, they're groomed to be a certain way. And what's the first thing that they tell you when you get out of the academy?
Forget everything they taught you in the academy.
Right.
Then the second thing they tell you is play the game.
Right.
And so these officers are taught to play the game, and once they get off probation, then they change.
And I got a theory about that. So we're going to take a break though. And let's play that Tommy Norman video, and then we'll go to a break. And we're only going to play the first 30 seconds of it. And then, we can watch again on a replay. You can pick it up there. So you can see there's no booty being seen. It's just him doing the nay-nay.
I don't know if I may not have had
in light
mine.
of all the events that took place last week, many people are taking to social media to show appreciation for police in their neighborhoods who have a relationship with their neighborhoods, and that people are out showing their gratitude. So enter Officer Tommy Norman. Tommy is an 18-year veteran in the police force in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and he is now being painted as a picture-perfect example of how to interact with the community that you protect. And he's got videos all over the place, from hanging out with neighborhood kids to collecting food, clothes, toys, donations. He says the key is, instead of driving up and down the street in the squad car, windows up, he says, get out of the car, sit down on a front porch, talk to the people in the neighborhoods you're patrolling, and get to know their stories. He says everyone, from the kids to the adults, everyone has a story.
And just doing
you were
normal
able
things
to
with them, I
bridge
guess.
that gap.
All right. So, hey, you guys saw that. You make your, we could do a poll. Did you see any booties being smacked in the video? And you can leave that on our YouTube channel. But we're going to go to a break now, and you can hit us up when we get back here on the Ride Along Radio Show. All right, welcome back to the Ride Along Radio Show here on the Morris Media Network. I'm George Holt.
I'm Gil Contreras, and can I just say one thing about that video?
Let me introduce Tony Boisselle real quick. I'm gonna stop calling you lieutenant because it makes it appear that you're appearing in an official capacity, and I wouldn't want the department to come after you. So I'm not gonna call this man lieutenant anymore. This is Tony Boisselle. So now because I have some experience with that agency and I know what they'll do. So, all right. So this is Tony Boisselle. See, I can say that. He can't say it. He can't even co-sign it, but I can say it. So anyway, all right, go ahead. What you going to say about the video?
All I wanted to say was whatever I saw, where I saw the booty slap, apparently it wasn't in those first 30 seconds. So I don't know how much of it we showed.
That's all we saw. That's all we saw. That's all we saw. It wasn't a booty slap. I think you just predisposed to see a booty slap. That's all. That's all. That's all. So
I don't know, but it wasn't.
It was a popular dance.
I'm just saying.
I'm
just saying it wasn't in that 30 seconds that I just saw. So
all right. It's okay.
You know,
all right. Cool. I'll accept. I think that's as close as we're going to get to a retraction from you. So I think we'll have to accept that.
Why not retracting the point I was making by saying that? I'm just saying.
No, but just the fact about the booty thing.
It wasn't in the first.
No,
it wasn't in. It wasn't
in there. That's all we showed.
It wasn't in the first 30 seconds. That's what I'll say. Perhaps I saw the whole thing earlier.
That was the only part of him dancing. Was the very beginning. The rest of the part he wasn't dancing.
I don't know. I saw the whole video. So
okay. Did you say and you saw the booty slapping later?
I don't know. I don't remember. I have to watch the whole thing, not just 30 seconds of it.
Then you can go back to watch
what I'm
show.
saying is that 30 seconds that we showed, I saw no booty slap. May I say that?
Okay. There we go. There we go. All right. Cool. Thank you.
And I took my vest off, so I'm hoping everybody will be nice now.
All right. Well, is the door locked? We have the gate locked out there because we don't want the assailants to run up in here.
Who?
So,
who that?
An assailant.
Oh,
unknown assailants.
An assailant.
Yeah. See, you're fixated. See. All right. So, one of the and we predicted this a while ago, and this is actually our topic for the day, is the dropping of charges against those Baltimore police officers. We said this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We said before the first officer was acquitted that it appeared to be very weak. But when that officer actually had a hung jury, he wasn't acquitted.
Right, correct.
When that officer had a hung jury, we knew then that it was kind of shaky because he allegedly was the one they had the strongest case against. Right. Okay? So we have, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about the Freddie Gray case, and we're going to show a little video here, and you'll give you a little update, and then we'll jump into it and hit the ground running. All right. So as they say on another show, shout out to rehearsal. We're going to so we'll keep talking then. All right. So Freddie Gray case, died in custody in the back of a van.
My professional role in this matter is plain: to seek justice on behalf of an innocent 25-year-old man who was unreasonably taken into custody after fleeing in his neighborhood, which just happens to be a high-crime neighborhood, and had his spine partially severed in the back of a Baltimore police wagon. For those that believe that I'm anti-police, it's simply not the case. I'm anti-police brutality, and I need not remind you that the only loss and the greatest loss in all of this was that of Freddie Gray's life. We do not believe that Freddie Gray killed himself. We stand by the medical examiner's determination that Freddie Gray's death was a homicide. However, after much thought and prayer, it has become clear to me that without being able to work with an independent investigatory agency from the very start, without having a say in the election of whether our cases proceed in front of a judge or a jury, without communal oversight of policing in this community, without real substantive reforms to the current criminal justice system, we could try this case 100 times and cases just like it, and we would still end up with the same result. Accordingly, I have decided not to proceed on the cases against Officer Garrett, Sergeant Alicia White, or to relitigate the case against William Porter. What I've learned through this experience is that every battle, every hurdle, every obstacle that we've overcome since the pursuit of these cases has brought us one step closer to equality, and that any and every step towards equality in our justice system is well worth fighting for. This system is in need of reform, and when it comes to police accountability, and as long as I'm the chief prosecutor for this city, I vow to you that my office and I will fight. We will fight for a fair and equitable justice system for all, so that whatever happened to Freddie Gray never happens to another person in this community again. Thank you.
All right. So they dropped the charges on the officers because they got sick of taking L's. Okay. Basically, the first officer was a mistrial. Then we had 2 or 3 in a row who were found not guilty.
Right.
And at that point, they said, "Well, damn, we're batting 0 now. So let's drop the charges on those officers." But let me say this: Marilyn Mosby is an elected official. Okay. keep that in mind. Keep in mind that all of this is politically motivated. I'm not saying that I disagree that Freddie Gray's death should have been ruled as a homicide. If that's what the medical examiner found, that's what the medical examiner found, okay? But what you've done is, now if you ever do find out what really happened, now you don't even have any credibility to go after the person that did it. Now it's like you're just dropping it and walking away from it because you're saying, oh, we're never going to get any justice. But what you should have done was not rush to judgment in the first place. What you should have done was waited and built the case and had a decent investigation to get all the facts instead of casting a net and scooping up 6 people who apparently didn't have anything to do with it didn't have that part to do with it.
Why was she calling for an outside agency investigative?
Because she felt that the Baltimore Police Department was going to protect their own. Oh. And this allows her now, see, when she comes up for re-election, if she's not disbarred, when she comes up for re-election, this allows her to say, well, yeah, we didn't get what we wanted, but I asked for an outside investigatory agency. I didn't get one. So she can appear that she was hamstrung. So she
asked for one after all the hoopla
I don't know if she asked for one up front or if she's just saying that she wishes she had one now.
Yeah, I didn't
But this is, keep in mind, everybody, this is the speech of an elected official. She's trying to keep her job because she doesn't look very effective in her job right now.
And she's trying to appease that community.
Well, she's trying to appease the community too, and that's cool. I dig that, but I think she's trying to appease the voters more than she's trying to appease the community. Okay, because again, she's an elected official, and I understand that if you have somebody who dies in police custody and their death is ruled a homicide, then you got to look into that. But you don't go about it clumsily. You don't go about it sloppily, where you scoop 6 people up and say that all of them did this, when it's quite clear that all of them could not have done it. Mm-hmm. And then you end up undermining the cases that you had, and then you lead with your best case. And I don't understand that strategy, okay? I knew from the other side of the country 6 months ago this was going to end up like this, which means she clearly must have known too. We discussed it here on the show. You knew it too. Right. So she clearly must have known this was going to happen. She clearly must have known she wasn't going to be able to convict these officers.
I don't think she. I think
she's been a prosecutor in a big crime-ridden city for a long time. She knows what hold up in court. What won't.
Just listen to her talk. Listen to her talk. She's all emotional. She thought she could.
It doesn't mean she doesn't understand the law, though. She's been an attorney for a while.
Yeah, but she thought she could prosecute her feelings because of the political climate.
Well, I think
it didn't work.
That she had to prosecute other people's feelings because she's in a political position.
I believe she believes the same thing they do.
Well, you know what? I don't know, but I know this. And if I was being cynical about this, and I try to control my cynicism because I am a conspiracy theorist. I believe Humpty Dumpty was pushed. So, if I was going to be conspiracy minded about it, I would say that those 6 officers were patsies, because they could say, well, let's go after them because they're going to walk, and now we don't have to really look into what actually happened, and it'll be a mystery. It's like Ron Settles at Signal Hill, right? Because now, if you go after the real person, you might actually get a conviction. If you find out who really did that, if it's ruled a homicide, it means death at the hands of another, right? Not all this depraved heart. What did they say? Depraved heart murder. Remember that? It was depraved heart murder they charged somebody with. If you really look into it, then you have a true scandal on your hands. If it turns out that somebody in a Baltimore police uniform actually murdered Freddie Gray, and you get that officer and you find this out, now you got huge lawsuits, you got this, you got that. If you're playing political ball game within that city, and the only thing I know about Baltimore is what I saw on The Wire, so I'm not making any speculations about the political machinations of the great city of Baltimore. I'm just saying, I was there once, but whatever, I just passed through. But I'm saying that it's easy to go after these patsies instead of getting down to the real nitty-gritty. At the end of the day, the only people who ended up suffering, besides Freddie Gray himself, were these 6 officers whose careers were stunted. I don't care what you say, none of them will ever be police chief in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. That is an impossibility. It's a political impossibility now, or any place else. They'll never be able to get another job at another police department any place else. Their careers and their lives have been stunted as a result of this, and clearly all of them didn't have – somebody got caught up in some bullshit who was innocent in this, okay? And I don't care if you give them back pay, which is what they're going to do. They're going to give them their jobs back. They're going to restore their back pay. Those people were still – eating cold corn out of a can for the last 6 months because they weren't getting a city paycheck, right? Wow. You still were watching your credit get destroyed when you didn't do anything but your job. Right. You know, I mean, I knew a guy sitting at home for so long. His joke was that he was so poor that for breakfast he'd have raisin one morning and the bran the next morning because he couldn't afford to have raisin bran on the same day. So it's sitting there going through that shit. And for what? When you haven't even gone after whoever really did this because the evidence against them didn't add up. Now you can't even go after anybody else because your credibility's shot. So now justice will never be served because you rushed to satisfy the public appetite for some sort of, I'm going to say, quote unquote, justice. Because this shit wasn't justice. You got 6 people involved in it who didn't have anything to do with it. And the person who did it, assuming the person did it, medical examiner said homicide. So somebody did it, but that person now will never be touched. Where was the justice in that, man?
I don't know. And what boggles my mind is how did his neck get broken?
That's what everybody wants to know. At what point did it get broken?
It couldn't have been in the vehicle. It had to be at the point of arrest, or it had to be where there was a fight. He broke free, and then took off running.
It could have been in the vehicle. It could have been in the vehicle. Okay,
you'd have to. I mean,
well, let's talk about that. There used to be this thing back in the day called a screen test.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
And the screen test would be, you've seen those cages in the back of police cars. That's called a screen, right? And if you had an uncooperative or mouthy suspect or somebody you felt needed some street corner justice on the way to the station, I've heard stories of officers slamming on the brakes while that person's handcuffed in the back seat because they're handcuffed. They can't put their hands up to stop their faces from hitting that screen, right? So they would hit that screen. They called it the screen test. So now, if that was going on out here in Southern California, I can imagine it probably was going on out there too. So it's not to say even that it happened on purpose, but if they jammed on those brakes for whatever reason and that guy wasn't properly secured back there, which I understand he wasn't, I could see that happening. And it doesn't mean that it was depraved heart murder. It doesn't mean that.
Right.
But homicide is homicide. The medical examiner says death at the hands of another. But again, and now we'll never know. Again, you remember the Ron Settles case right out of Signal Hill, 1981, I think it was. Look that up if you're interested in that. Ron Settles, and the name of the city was the city of Signal Hill, down right here in Southern California by Long Beach. And he was a Cal State Long Beach football player. He was a college football player, and he was taken into custody of Signal Hill Jail, and he never made it out alive. He was found hung in his cell. And they said that he killed himself, but the coroner ruled it death at the hands of another. So, and nobody ever went to the joint for that, man. Yeah. Somebody killed that dude, and nobody ever went to the joint for it. So nobody ever faced justice for it. So that's awful, and that's what's going to happen in this case too. So it was no matter how you slice it. If you think those cops did it, well, they're not facing justice now. And if you think they had nothing to do with it, they got screwed over for no reason. And this dude is still dead, and there's nobody being held to answer for it. So this is real clumsy, and she's sorry at her job, and I hope they vote her out and get somebody in there who's going to be better at their job. And that doesn't just mean as an attorney. That means as someone who's an elected figure, who is a leader in a major city, who is not going to fall prey to mob rule and mob feelings and stand on the law like you're supposed to do. Instead of being an elected official, you're an officer of the court first, and that's what she's supposed to be doing. And I don't think she did it, because if she did, we wouldn't be having this outcome either way. So that's my take on it. 323-293-3375. Let's hear your take on it.
Well, I tell you, the other thing that people are going to be upset with is, somebody posted this on my page. I think it was today or yesterday. I don't know. About the female sergeant at NYPD who was present at the Eric Garner incident. Apparently, apparently she's a subject now of an internal investigation about whether she supervised or not.
Yes, failure to supervise. Well, I thought that's what they did with this sergeant here for Alicia White. Didn't they do her for that too?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so people, this person who posted this wrote, she's been charged. And then I read it, and well, no, she hasn't been charged with anything. This is an internal investigation about her supervision of the officers at the scene.
So that's not a criminal act. Failure to supervise is not a criminal act,
right? But the false narrative.
Stacey Kuhn, it can be
the false narrative of Eric Garner was choked to death. That and until people understand use of force, from a police perspective, not a TV perspective or an activist perspective, but when you understand use of force and you apply that knowledge when you see these high-profile cases, you should be able to look at something and go, well, based on what the law and department policy say about use of force, number one, he wasn't choked. Number two, He wasn't cooperative, so that's why they used force to take him to the ground. And the arm was a standard takedown. I mean, when you're choking somebody out, there's a whole way to do that.
Right. If you're going to choke them out with like a carotid, was a carotid applied in that situation?
No, it looked more like
Just
a
an upper
bar
body
arm
control.
takedown because he was so big they couldn't get him on the ground because he wouldn't cooperate. So, but this is why people are so upset. When they see these high-profile cases, they wonder. This is why people, including Mosby, think that we need, quote, criminal justice system reform, close quote, because they're not prosecuting cops, and the reason they're not prosecuting cops is because of racism, and that couldn't be further from the truth. The thing is, they just don't understand use of force and the law and department policy and what an officer is allowed to do to take you into custody, and what your duty is as a person when a police officer tells you, turn around and put your hands behind your back. Whatever your thinking is, but I didn't do anything. But I'm not the. I ain't
right, because again, you don't know what the officer knows.
That's right.
So
your duty is to follow.
But let's say this, and we are here, and I haven't broken this thing out in a while. But I have a philosophical device I like to use called the societal pendulum.
Oh, not the pendulum.
And I haven't brought the pendulum out in a month. I got to blow the dust off the societal pendulum.
I don't know. I don't know.
Here's where it goes.
If it's the pendulum or
the pendulum.
The olive branch. I don't know which one.
But I use that. I use that already. I haven't used the pendulum in a minute.
I don't know which one I like less.
So the societal pendulum is that yes, officers now are being held accountable and being charged with crimes in instances where they clearly should not be. But that is a reaction to it being the other way over here, where for so long officers were not held accountable because if an officer said something happened that way, that's the way it happened. Everybody accepted that right up until the Rodney King videotape. People accepted that what officers said is what happened. So we abused that so badly for so long, and that pendulum was so far over here that now when you let a pendulum go, what does it do? It doesn't rest in the middle. It goes all the way over to the other side. If I had it here, it'll come back to here. If I had it here, it'll come back to here. So it swings all the way to the other extreme, and now coppers are getting washed up for shit they didn't do because of, for so long, guys were doing shit and getting away with it. And people were not listening to suspects when they said, I didn't do that. He planted that dope on me, or that guy didn't have a gun. That cop shot that guy and planted a gun on him, or planted his taser on him or whatever. So now that we see this, and some people say, well, man, the situation hasn't changed. Technology is what's changed. Now we see video of all these things. I'll bring the Walter Scott case up. If somebody hadn't had video of that, that officer would be driving around that city right now doing his job, having fucking murdered somebody.
Agreed.
And none would be the wiser.
I agree.
So that happened. And as a result, now we kind of got to take the other side of it, which sucks. Especially if you're an officer who's out there doing your job. And what society doesn't realize is, and if you lived in L.A., you saw this after Rodney King, you saw it after the riots, you are discouraging good police officers from doing a good job. Because what happens is now a guy goes, well, I'm just trying to work and do good for the people. I'm not going to put myself in a position where I end up with my face on the news. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting at home with the raisin and the bran one morning and then the next, and I'm not getting paid, and now my family can't eat because I've been accused of something and I no longer get the benefit of the doubt. So, good officers are going to sit in their car. They're not going to be proactive. They're going to respond and come out when you call them. They're going to take action only when they have to.
Only if it's felony now in city of Los Angeles.
If it's a felony, if some heinous shit's happening right in front of them, they're going to do it. And I was around post Rodney King, and if you don't think that changed the outlook a lot of police officers had on doing their jobs, it really did. It had a chilling effect. Now, some people say, well, that's good because maybe they weren't out harassing as many people as they were. But they also weren't out stopping people who had just broken into your house and stolen your crap. They weren't stopping that guy who's walking down the street with a gun in his waistband who's going to commit a murder next weekend if he's allowed to roam free. Officers were not being very proactive, and as a result, we saw crime go up. So this is what you get when you remove all support from your police and make them into the bad guys, whether they are or not. And again, I understand it. People were sick of the shit. We did a whole lot of bullshit we shouldn't have been doing. But goddamn, here's the other side of the game. Didn't we?
I don't want to co-sign on. We did a whole bunch of shit we shouldn't have been doing. I'm not going to co-sign that.
What, do you want me to say the names?
What I'm going to
I can speak a whole lot of officers' names who were either in the joint or should have gone to the joint because they were doing shit they shouldn't have been doing.
What I'm going to say is when you're working these high crime urban areas, you're not dealing with nice people. Career criminals, parolees, prison gang members, street gang members, dope dealers, dope movers, gun runners. These are not nice people. And you can't be officer friendly to them. You can't have a discussion. Hey man, well, it's going to go real bad for you if you please.
Well, you can't. We ain't about to have a board meeting about this shit. When I got my gun on you, we ain't about to have a board meeting about it.
That's right.
You're going to do what I told you to do.
You have to have an ego and a presence bigger than these guys, or they will take advantage of you.
If you let them take advantage,
they will hurt you.
Yes. But let me tell you something that General Mattis said. General Mad Dog Mattis. I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
the Marine
absolutely.
Corps wrote a book on leadership, and he said, be civil and be polite to everyone you meet, but have a plan, right? He said have a plan to kill everybody you meet. But
I was going to say
that's a Marine Corps general. So for us in law enforcement,
it's not different.
Well, it is different in that my thing was just because I'm smart. I've had conversations, and actually I laughed when I saw this at End of Watch. The officer's talking to the guy outside the car, and the officer's got his gun in his lap, pointing at the guy.
Right.
And the guy doesn't even know it, and the officer's bullshitting with him and smiling and laughing and joking. I've been that officer in that car.
Absolutely.
Because I know that me and this guy are bullshitting right now, but if he gets a chance, he think he can kill me and get away with it, he'll do it. Mm-hmm. So I got to be ready for that. But that doesn't mean
or if he turns on you in a second.
And he could turn on you in a second.
Right.
So I never felt like I needed to mean mug everybody I met. But you're right. You can't make – if a sociopaths routinely mistake kindness for weakness.
Absolutely.
Okay? We know this. And career criminals are by definition sociopaths. So you can't be officer friendly to everyone, but there needs to be those officers who are going to be officer friendly to certain people. And just because I've been dealing with gangsters and gun runners and dope movers and everything else doesn't mean when I show up at your house to take a report, because while you are at work, working, whatever job you have, you come home and you find that some of these assholes we were just talking about broke into your house. You don't need me to treat you like shit. You need me to be empathetic and to listen to you, take the report and do my job and not compound your bad situation.
Right. And
so you
try to reassure
turn it
you
on and off.
Absolutely.
Got to be able to do that. Now, you made a comment earlier about they tell you to play the game when you come out of the academy, right? I think that a big part of the reason that we don't, and you said, hey, we got to turn these guys in, but who are doing wrong. But I think a big part of the reason that officers don't do that, there's a couple reasons. Number one is because if you're out in the street and you're depending on people to have your back in life or death situations, that there has to be that bond there, right? And sometimes that bond will make you overlook negative stuff a person is doing if you know that your safety depends on them wanting to back you up. I understand that. However, we did all take an oath not to let that kind of thing sway our thinking. The other side of it is, if you look at how we recruit police officers are recruited for conformity. And what I mean by that is they look at your grades. Hell, I was a grown man and they went back and looked at my high school grades. They want to look at your credit, your work history. They're going to talk to your neighbors. They're going to talk to anybody you live with in the last 10 years. They're going to talk to your mama, your daddy, your baby mama, baby daddy, whatever. They're going to talk to all those people. They're going to check your criminal history, your driving record, everything, to make sure that you have always colored within the boxes, or at least as much as possible, that you stay within those lines. What that does is it weeds out people, no pun intended, but it weeds out people. Oh, they're going to check for drug abuse and alcohol abuse, et cetera. It tends to weed out people who are nonconformists, and you are left with a bunch of people who are conformists. As a result, when they get into police culture, they're going to conform. For the most part, they're going to, if this is what we do, we don't tell on each other in this culture, that's what they're going to do because they're conformist, okay? And they've been screened because and accepted because they're conformist. And that's why it's so hard to break police culture, because police culture is filled with people who are conformist.
But, the thing is, you have to define what a, quote, bad, close quote, officer is. And so if you see a guy who doesn't talk to people right, who's disrespectful to people, and just kind of gets in and out of his car and handles shit, what the fuck's going on here? You get back in your house, you stand over here. When you see that, somebody might say, well, that's, that guy should be reported for that. But if I show up and I'm the backup and I show up and I see him doing his thing, this is how I learned. That's how he does his thing. I do me.
He's not committing any crime.
He does him. It's not a crime.
He's not committing any crime. Sure.
And if it's it's a policy thing, boy, it better be serious, or I'm just gonna roll my eyes and I'm gonna, the guy's a jerk.
Right.
And what everybody knows is the officers who end up, quote, dirty, close quote, committing a crime of some sort, they do themselves. And everybody warns you. When you're a boot, everybody warns you, hey, man, that dude, he's a fucking asshole. So just, be cool. If you have to work with a dude, go along with it. Don't break the law.
Right.
But if you have to work, that's just who he is. We're not going to change him. He was like that when I got here. He's going to be like that when I leave.
But the problem is, along the way, until that guy does get caught and he does do himself, how many people has he fucked over in the meantime, right?
Yeah.
How many people has he put in jail that didn't belong there? How many people?
Yeah, and it's going to be equal to or greater than the number of people he arrested who did belong in jail.
Well, yeah, but another cop would have put those same people in jail without doing the bad shit. No, that's yours.
Merci
Mine
beaucoup.
is over here.
Merci beaucoup.
So listen, we're gonna go to a break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna get into drug and alcohol rehabilitation.
Sounds good to me.
And we're gonna get into the subject here, and we're gonna talk about SoBear. So let's take a break here on the Right Along Radio Show, but you can hit us up when we get back, 323-293-3375. Or if you want to call in the meantime and talk to Gil off air, he can hit you with his Voz de Oro. All right. So welcome back to the Right Along Radio Show. I'm George Holt.
Funny.
That's Gil Contreras, and this is Tony Boisselle. And Tony's here today to talk about his efforts to support those who are in drug and alcohol rehab. But, and this is one of those topics that is impactful to law enforcement and the community for a couple of reasons. And I remember back when they started sending people to diversion, back in the day when we arrested somebody for possession, they went to the joint, right? They went to the joint. There was no rehab as part of sentencing. You went to the penitentiary, or you went to jail at least,
right?
If we caught you with a couple grams of rocks or whatever. So then they start saying, well, if it's under a certain amount, and you're a first-time offender, right, and you weren't possessing it for sale, and there was other evidence that you are a user, like say you had paraphernalia, if you had rocks and a pipe, right, then that's evidence that you're using it and you're not selling it. Or if you just had rocks, it was a small quantity, then they would offer you what they call diversion. So instead of you going to the joint, you would go to rehab, court-ordered rehab. And
drug court. Go to drug court.
Go to drug court, exactly, right? And then you would be sentenced, quote-unquote, to a rehab program. Well, of course, people start abusing that because then if I'm a drug dealer and, man, I got a sack full of rocks, a fat sack of rocks, and I've been slinging dope all night, and you catch me when I got two packs left. Now, oh, no, that's for personal use. Your Honor, I got to go to drug court. So now I go to drug court, and I don't have any priors, and I can tell you that I'm a dope fiend. I tell the judge, no, it's for personal use. Can I get diversion? Because that's better than me going to the joint,
right? For
possession for sale, which is a felony. I'm going to the penitentiary. So then they started putting the first-time low-level drug dealers into rehab with the dope fiends and with predictable results, right? So we've not always been very smart about how we've gone about our efforts to rehab people, but at least we started trying. And for the longest time, we didn't try,
Well, that was one of the things about Sheriff Lee Baca. When he was running, I won my Golden Mike for covering his election to become sheriff. And that was one of the things that all of his detractors that I spoke to at LASD, the one thing they said is, man, he's got these progressive ideas about the jails, and he wants to bring education, and he wants to, and they didn't like it. They didn't like it, and they didn't think it would work. And he tried some of this stuff, and it turns out his detractors were correct.
Well, but you know what? You got to try it, so now you know that doesn't work, okay? Yeah, but the dude was a Harvard grad. I mean, he's still a Harvard grad. I mean, he's a bright guy.
He was a smart guy. There's no doubt about that. He was very smart. But there's this, and I don't want to go political here, but there's this thing about progressives, and unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know however one views this, but there are many progressives in law enforcement now. Which is
a good thing, actually.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
You got to balance out some of the conservative.
I'm not sure. I'm just saying I'm not sure.
Yeah,
for me,
okay.
for
Go
Gil.
ahead. I think it's a good thing. Balance is always
for Gil. However, the unintended consequences of this progressive public policy that we've seen over and over again, it's leading us nowhere. And so because we're trying to work with the criminal justice system, we're trying to tweak it. with this progressive ideology, and as a result, you get AB 109, you get Prop 47, and all we're doing, the criminals are just laughing. I had a thing that was posted on my page earlier. This guy in Simi Valley is, harassing these two girls who are at home and their parents are at work, and they call Simi Valley PD and they come up and they go, "Oh yeah, we know the dude,
Right.
he's a little meth freak. Nothing we can do. We can't do nothing to him. Nothing we can do." So they drive away. He comes back, and as long as he's on the sidewalk, he's the kind of guy who should be on probation. He's the kind of guy that should, he needs supervision because he's another sociopath.
Right. Clearly,
but
he's
now,
harassing girls.
but now we have to wait till he commits a felony. And that's what you're doing is you talked about tools earlier. You're taking the tools away from the street officer, and they're left with nothing. They have to wait till somebody's actually injured or dead before they can actually take some action. And I'm telling you, if you see this video, and I hope you watch it later, in Hemet, the chief is just beside himself.
Can you send me that?
I'll send it to you.
Cool.
And the chief is just beside himself, and he's talking about all of his officers who are being assaulted every night. He said he has 20% of his
Every night?
Every night.
Can you imagine us letting that shit go on? Where somebody was getting assaulted every night? Are you
But
kidding
you
me?
should have seen this crowd. It was
we would have come in there with locusts and pestilence and affliction and all kind of shit. Hell no.
That's my point. Is you cannot do that. That's why I said those days are gone. You should have seen this crowd, and they're yelling and they're in their face.
Didn't some lady get shot? Was that the same
was
video where the lady got shot?
Yes.
They loaded her back in the ambulance?
Yeah.
I saw the blurb on it, but I didn't watch the
Yeah.
video. If you can send me the video, please.
I'm just telling you, when you watch that, and this is Hemet, you understand what cops are facing on the street.
Well, and I'm sure your experiences as a police officer probably led you to want to get, besides your own personal stuff that we talked about, but seeing people with addiction issues and some of the people we would see in our area collecting cans and bottles, and those people had substance abuse issues pretty clearly, right?
Yeah.
And so exactly. So how did those experiences lead you to want to help in this way as opposed to the traditional way that most police officers would help, which would be by handcuffs and
Well, I mean, we all know, we all have family members and friends that are addicts and alcoholics. So
That's
we all know that they're great people, and you, like I said before, you see their lives spiraling down, and even in our jobs,
right?
You just talked about the police officer that hasn't done anything wrong and is on admin leave,
right?
And the raisin and the bran.
Yeah.
Well, while they're doing the raisin and the bran, their mind is going a million miles a minute.
Sure.
They're trying to think about, what did I do to get this? I didn't do anything. I've taken an oath. I've done everything I can, and I'm being framed for something that I didn't do. And there becomes, they start getting anxiety. They start getting worried. They're thinking about their family.
And then they fall prey to.
Then and
like this,
how do you medicate yourself? And that's where some people use, we watch TV. What do the first thing you do when you get stressed? Take a drink.
Take a drink.
That's it. The TV tells us, our families have told us, and all of a sudden, they take a drink, they drink more, and all of a sudden, they get addicted.
Now you got an alcohol problem on top of the other shit that you already had going.
Right, and this happens for police officers, doctors, lawyers, everybody.
Sure.
And that's why this becomes a disease. Now, the disease itself, there's some people that become addicts because they want to party, and then they become addicts.
Right.
But the majority of the people that I found when we're working with SoBear is that I find that our people have some pre-existing issues, and usually it's not their fault. It could be something that happened to them when they were a child. It's something that happened, a death in the family. It could be, like I said, a stressor at work, and you just need to relax, and they don't know how to handle it, and they self-medicate. Another thing that I see is the people are, when they come out of the closet, they're afraid to come out of the closet.
Sure,
because they're afraid that their family's going to reject them.
Sure.
Because their family say, "I'm going to reject you." I'm going to reject somebody who's like that. I would never have anybody.
Right. So they don't know they're talking to somebody who's like that. Right. Right there. They're
like that.
Right. Well, no, I'm using the quote that he said. He said they said I wouldn't deal with somebody who's like that. And you're talking to somebody who's like that, and they don't even realize it. Sure.
So what happens is they self-medicate. They have to hide. And that's when they become addicts. So this disease, which it becomes a disease because it's you have a medical condition where you're physically addicted to a substance.
Sure, yeah. Definitely.
Now you've got good people that have done good things mixed with bad people, or not even bad people, but people who just partied And then now the bad people are the ones that are selling them the drugs.
Right.
It's usually not the addicts. So what we do is, what does society do? We criminalize addiction.
Yeah.
And now we have a hard time, but we have a hard time in the court systems because they're not set up, and us as police officers, we're not trained to weed the good and the bad. And even if we did, what systems or programs are in place? What systems and programs are in place to be able to say, okay, this person belongs here where they can recover and they can learn, and this guy who sold the drugs and is an addict, he needs to go over there. We can't do. We don't
have any way to.
And if the addict's committing crimes, he has to be arrested.
Yeah, they do.
Well,
they have to be held accountable.
But sometimes the mere possession is the crime, and that is the sole crime. I mean, how many people do we stop, especially down in the harbor? My God. You'd stop people from all walks of life in the harbor who were down there buying drugs. And, man, I didn't care. You were going to the joint because that's felony possession.
And that's the way we were taught. I mean,
right. I mean, think about that. San Pedro, Harbor City,
I told
Wilmington.
you before, Stewart and I had the highest felony filing rates for narcotics cases in the Harbor Division.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about.
Stewart.
Here's where it changed for me, is that I met this one friend of mine who worked at the airport who was a ticket agent. Very nice girl, very, very sweet, and they called her Tweaker. Everybody knew she was doing drugs. They called her Tweaker.
That was her name.
And that's what they called her. And we ended up one day, it was bad, but she was the sweetest girl. And one time we were meeting at the In-N-Out, right by work.
Sure.
And I was working graveyards as a young officer, and we met there. And I started talking to her, and I said, "You're not leaving. I'm not going to let you go. You got to eat." And I spent probably 3 or 4 hours of a snow night talking to her about her addiction.
That's a slow night.
Slow night, yeah, real slow night.
But we talked about her addiction, and
so she came clean about really being a tweaker. Did you know people call her tweaker?
Know. Yeah, she knew.
Okay.
And she knew. And
that's terrible.
To make a long story short, for the efforts of saving time, we ended up not seeing each other, talking, and I run into her mother, and because her mother worked around where we worked.
Yeah.
And her mother says, "Hey, you know so-and-so?" I said, "Yeah, that's my daughter."
Wow.
Well, what happened? So we ended up reconnecting through her mother, and she had been clean for a long time.
Okay.
And we're now friends.
Good.
And we talk, and she's a great woman. She's doing the right thing. She's done
being a productive member of society again.
Yeah, she did her time in jail. She did her time, but she's a great productive, and now she's a role model for a lot of people who are beginning the process
and want to get clean.
And that's what we're about. We're about raising awareness, giving people the opportunity to meet others who are in their predicament because they feel alone.
Right.
If you look at our social media, at our SoBear at Instagram, you'll see that people buy the bears, they take photos, send it to us, and say, "Please post this." Because now addiction isn't.
What's your hashtag? Hashtag is SoBear?
Yeah, for Instagram, it's our SoBear. OURSOBEAR.
Okay.
And what they do is now people are connecting on social media, and they're using social media.
Other. They can see each other's posts.
And they connect on social media, and that's what they use to carry them through that day. Now, obviously, that a lot of people need a program, whether it's AA or a medical treatment. We're not about that. That's not in our business. I mean, I don't have.
It's not what you do.
No, I'm a Band-Aid guy, and that's it.
Right.
But they have their.
But it's
program.
helpful still.
Well, what exactly? So you don't do there's not a 12-step program?
They have we're not a 12-step program because we don't have any therapists. But what we do is we raise awareness, and when people come to us and ask us, we point them in that direction. Here's
toward the resources.
You need medical attention, or you need to get professional help, and this is where you go. So we'll help people get it. We won't provide it for them because what we're doing is more raising awareness, and how we help is we have people that. We connect people via social media.
Right.
Another thing that we do is we have running. We do runs, and if you look at us, we'll have a whole team, and we'll run a Spartan race.
Nice.
And we'll run a 5K, a 10K.
See, that takes some of the stigma away from addicts too.
Right.
Because a lot of people feel that once you're an addict, then there's no you ever being what's the saying that. Toast can't never be bread again.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. You have find a lot of people in recovery
You like
That-
that
I'll
one?
write that one down.
How about
Write it
this
down.
one? Once you're a pickle, you can never be a cucumber again. That's the other one too, right?
That's nice.
So, but that's not true necessarily, because
No.
people can come back from
No,
that.
because people can medically heal. And what happens is if you change your lifestyle, and all of a sudden you find people that are like, I have a friend of mine in Canada that I met. She went from being an alcoholic to competing in bodybuilding, and
Wow.
So, and there's people that work out. We have running clubs, and the cool thing about it is that people who run with our races, and we'll have Team SoBear. You can hashtag Team SoBear, and you'll see.
Nice.
You'll see a bunch of people, and through that group of people, you'll say 15 people. You won't be able to tell which one's an addict and which one isn't.
Gotcha.
Because now,
Sure.
not only are the addicts running and in recovery, but they're family members.
Right.
We have runners from my children who are, the youngest one's 8. We have
Yeah.
a 14-year-old that's training for the marathon.
Wow.
So she's running for recovery. I have an 18-year-old who's just graduated high school, and she's committed herself to a life of being, clean and sober, and she helps, and she's volunteering.
And that's a good. These people are helping each other, is the way I see it, right?
Right.
In terms of just by interacting with each other.
Right.
And another thing is, I had a cousin who was struggling with addiction, and I remember at one point he was kind of he cleaved to me very closely, and that's because he knew that I wasn't about that, and he knew that as long as he was with me, he wouldn't be getting high.
Right.
So and I didn't even realize that until he told me later, that's what was happening with him. But it's absolutely true, because if you're hanging around with your dope fiend friends, you're going to do dope fiend shit. That's just how that goes, right?
Right. And we
So
share,
that's
and
good.
people, and they share their stories online. You post a little something about the person online, and they connect. There's something similar about their recovery process or their addictions or what they did, and things that they've experienced while they were using and now that they're not using. And there's people at different levels, so they're going to say, well, the first couple months of your recovery, you're going to be the happiest person in the whole wide world, and then you're going to be very angry for a while.
Oh, wow.
And people don't understand that there's moods.
Now,
And-
why
and
is
as
that?
And your body's
Right, because the brain is changing and it's detoxing. And when I used to work with these people, I would get them in single counseling sessions, and they would come in and they would say, "Man, Gil, I just feel like shit. I was feeling like shit, man." And I would just say, "Oh, good." Because that's what you're supposed to be.
Oh, okay.
You're supposed to feel like shit.
means it's coming along good
because
there.
we're
They're
going to get
progressing.
through this shit, and when you get on the other end, you'll be able to talk about this shit, but it still won't have the same emotional power that it does right now. So you might talk about something today with me, and you start crying.
Right.
And as we release that emotional pressure, which is, it's like pressure. Let's just
sure.
release a little bit off, close it back up, and just guide you through. And by the time we get to at some point in your future, that pressure is all gone. So when we're down here and you're telling me about that same situation, now we're just talking, but you're talking from your heart. But there's no more tears because
Sure, 'cause you let the
the
pressure
power
out.
of that incident has now been taken away, and now I can put it away and move on with my
And
life.
another thing that speeds
Wow.
up the brain in recovery and medical recovery, and studies have shown, is that fitness, people going to the gym, getting your body healthy
Yeah,
again,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It speeds up that recovery process a lot.
Yeah, we both. We had a.
Just the thing is, and
Opposed to
as
that.
I'm listening to Tony here, that my experience is that people had to have a near-death experience before they would even consider going to something. You can talk to them as they're using it. Well, yeah, I know I should.
They had to hit rock bottom.
Or they rock bottom, yes, but in my experience, it had to be almost a life-threatening situation that occurred that made them go, "Whoa!" It broke that addictive brain program or trance that I let her like a trance. It would just break it. Like, whoa, shit! I could have lost my life there.
That's their aha moment.
Yeah, when you get them there, that's when now I can say, hey, let's do this. Hey, let's try this. Now we start moving. Now we can do something. Until you get there, I can't help you.
But another thing that's really important that we need to stress is that family members can get involved. Because, addiction is a family disease. Because
It
you
impacts
have
the
loved
family.
ones. Yeah.
Sure,
and
hell
as
yeah.
the individual changes in their recovery, the family's got to be able to adapt and adjust to it. So
right, because if you come from a criminal family, or if you come from a family that is addicted to other addictions, maybe sexual abuse, maybe alcohol, but your thing is meth, as this person starts to get healthy and become more self-aware, the family structure is like, well, wait a second, we don't know this guy.
Right.
We know the addict guy.
Right.
He fits into our
Sure.
family structure, and so they have to make adjustments also. Otherwise, at some point, you have
They'll
to say,
tear your shit down for you.
You can say, hey, you're going to have to just cut them out for right now. At some point, you may go back, but for right now, to save you in your recovery,
Get away from
we're going to
that.
have to block these people out.
Now, the governor of New Hampshire has a program he was backing. Actually, this is not a new video, but I thought it was still pretty good. We're going to show a video about drug recovery programs that could be an effective alternative to jail, kind of like we talked about earlier, but this is a little different twist to it.
Those struggling with addiction may be getting a second chance to kick their habit and turn their lives around. Governor Daniel Malloy visiting a program in Willimantic, he says, can be an effective alternative to prison. News 8's Tina Dittel has more on that program.
Whether it's help staying sober or looking for a job, the folks who come to this recovery center say the best thing about it is that it's a safe place.
The amazing thing, the dynamic is it's a volunteer who's in recovery reaching out to another person.
Governor Malloy tours the Wyndham Recovery Community Center, which has made a huge difference in Caitlin's life. She started volunteering as part of her community service and is now helping others facing her same struggles.
There's a big stigma for people with addiction that, then it makes it difficult to get housing, to get jobs, to be back into the community. So you tend to revert and just stay in that lifestyle.
A cycle she says can be broken with programs like this, run by CCAR, Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery. The governor says his Second Chance Society initiatives will drive down crime through these types of programs, not just prison.
50 years ago, America started to change, and we became invested in permanent punishment as opposed to permanent reform. And I'm trying to change that.
Caitlin says there is hope, and if you want it, there is help.
My license was suspended. I had everything taken away from me. I lost my children, and now I have it all back. So, it is possible to come back from the lowest of low.
What do you say to an employer who says, I don't know if I can take a chance on this person? That person is an addict.
There's so much experience that shows that people who have been out of prison and are in recovery are the hardest working, the most dedicated, they have the most to lose.
CCAR isn't just here in the quiet corner. There are also 2 other recovery centers just like this one in Bridgeport and Hartford. In Willimantic, Tina Dittel, News 8.
All right. So you may be wondering, so why the bear? And just now we were talking about that. And what is the function of the bear? How can people get a bear, and what does the bear do for your organization?
Okay, so the reason why we picked a bear is that teddy bears are very comforting. When we were kids, what do we sleep? We sleep with their teddy bears. But also, what I found,
still sleeps with his. So.
Well, no, it was always a gun. I never. It was a toy. It was a toy gun. This is my rifle. Darminian like it.
But this one is mine.
I have a bunch of these on my beds. I name them all. No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, well, that may have been too much.
But what people do is they find these things very comforting, and what I see is that people grasp them at the meetings and they hold on to them.
Wow.
Just almost like
unconsciously, they don't even realize they're doing it?
It's almost like the comfort blanket, and they just hold on to them at a meeting, and when they get their anxiety, they just kind of squeeze it a little bit more. So I found that it was probably the best thing to have is something teddy bear. But also it also represents the family too, because people can give it to their children, and their children are running around with SoBears, and they think, wow, my child has it, and they love it. And it's a reminder.
Right, definitely a reminder.
Definitely a reminder of who's important for you. And people give them as gifts.
It kind of breaks down the barrier or the stigma, that is, of I'm being open with my family. I'm saying, yeah, I'm an addict,
right,
and I'm trying to stay sober. Yeah, and this is one way that I'm doing. I think that's beautiful.
Another feature of this bear in the back, if you take a look at the back.
Can you guys see that? You hold it up, we can see it.
So we have a zipper pouch in the back. So for people who hit their milestones in recovery, what they're able to do is put their coins and chips in there, or little cool things in there that people have give them as kind of a welcoming tool, and this is where they keep their special.
Wow! So it gives even more significance.
Yeah, it becomes a symbol of their sobriety. This bear, and what people do is they sell it. They buy them and then they give them to people, hey, you're brand new to this and you seem like a really cool guy, or here you go, I want you to hold on to this. This is the symbol of your recovery.
Oh, wow.
And what we do with the money is we donate it to drug and alcohol recovery programs and individuals.
Okay.
Because we want to go as far down grassroots as we can. Some of these big companies, these nonprofits, I'm not really able to see where that money goes.
Right.
Now this company,
most of it goes overhead.
Right. And this company was started, off the sweat of my back. A friend of mine, Rolando Talbot, who's a retired Air Force captain. He's a good friend of mine. We grew up together. We started this together.
Nice.
This is our thing, and we put a lot of time in there. We put a lot of money into it, and we want to make sure that what we're giving out is going to the right places.
Right, you can maintain control and transparency.
Right. I don't compensate myself for this. This is not a moneymaker thing for me.
Right.
This is something that's a passion. It's something that I want to do. It extends what I do as a police officer. It helps me continue to help the community, but maybe in a different way.
Right, exactly.
We see the bad, let's see the good. And it's almost like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like therapy for me. Knowing that we're doing something to help other people. And I've met the neatest people in the whole wide world that are addicts in recovery. Some of the most intelligent people, some of the most loving people through SoBear. And I've seen them at their worst, and now I'm starting to see them at their best.
That's got to be pretty rewarding.
It's very rewarding, and it makes it all worth it.
Now, what's a website people can go to find out more, to order one of these for one of their loved ones that may be going through this, and they want to support the people in recovery?
The website is www.sobear.com, SoBear.com. Then we also have our Facebook page, SoBear, and then our Instagram is rSoBear, OUR, and then we have a Twitter also, which is rSoBear.
Okay, and they can hashtag rSoBear.
Yeah, they can hashtag it. They can hashtag SoBear, rSoBear. You'll be able to find us.
We hashtag SoBear for this, and that may be why we get a lot of activity on the page today. Maybe why that's very good, man. I'm really proud of what you've done with this, man. And I remember I was surprised to find that you were involved in it. And then as I looked at it, I go, damn, that's pretty cool. It's fun,
and every time I get a nice little note from somebody, or a direct message, or an email from us, and if you want to email us, it's info@sobear.com. And just sometimes we get a thank you. Sometimes we get, hey, we need help. I have a friend, and then we just direct them in the right direction. And sometimes that's all they need. Mm-hmm. Sometimes little notes that we send out, hey, how are you doing? We look at the page and people that post the info.
Right.
I'll get on their Instagram page, find their names, send them a direct message. Hey, thanks for ordering a SoBear. How you doing? How's everything? Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And they'll tell us, hey, this is bad. Hey, you may want to talk to that person.
And that gives you another avenue by which you can help somebody else.
Yeah.
Man, that's good stuff, man. It really is.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So
it's worked. I mean, we've been people writing blogs about us. I've done other radio shows. We've been on TV. We've been on Dr. Phil. We've been on a whole series of the Kardashians.
Oh, wow!
Hamptons,
and you were doing so well.
Chloe had the bear with her the whole time.
When Lamar was laid up,
and she loved it. And I've never met her, never talked to her. And one of the interesting things which I appreciate from them was that when they had this on their show, my logos were blurred out. Blurred out every logo, but they didn't ours.
Right, because it's
and she carried the bear with her throughout the whole show. Didn't say much, didn't say anything, but kept it there, and you saw it every show. That's when I had the most impact. That's when it had the most impact.
And that's her using her celebrity for good. Yeah. Actually, that's good. So a Kardashian used their powers for good and not necessarily
Well, is
evil.
that the show where she was at the bar? She had some sort of
no.
I mean,
this was when she was in New York.
I don't know anything about that.
But I tell you,
she has some other.
Well, look, okay, so we could go on about the Kardashians forever, but we do have to wrap. And our producers generously extended our time. We've gone into overtime now, so make sure you put in your OT slips because we've gone into time and a half. So,
Man, hope Lieutenant will approve it.
I know, right? So So listen, I'm really glad you came. I'm real proud of you, man. I like what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
And I didn't even know it was this involved. So this has been a very educational experience for me, and hopefully for everybody who's watching. And I knew that you knew something about this. I didn't realize how much you knew. So that's been a great, enlightening thing for me too, and hopefully for everybody else watching this. That's good stuff.
We all know more than we let on.
That's right.
Right. That's good. As you should never tell everything you know.
And
So
I
that's good, right?
just want to say one thing to Teresa Dash. I hear you.
All right.
That's it.
All right.
That's
Good.
it. I hear you.
But you don't hear him though.
But you don't hear me though. That's kudo. That's kudo. That's kudo.
Anyway,
For sure.
listen, we will catch you guys next week on the Ride Along Radio Show here on the Morris Media Network. You can send us an email, ridealongradioshow@gmail.com. You can tweet us at Ride Along Radio Show. Follow us on Instagram. Like us on Facebook. I got it right. All right. And you have social media?
I do, but yeah, I'm shutting it down.
All right. So we'll see you guys next week. Later. Be safe.